Hi, welcome to Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. We've got a full house this week. I'm so excited that you joined us. We have Katherine Bones, Chastity Bolin, Emily Royal, and Caroline Warfield. And we have 3 releases this week. We've got Catherine's The Sea Rover's Curse, Caroline's The Defiant Daughter, and then we also had the big anthology released yesterday. So Upon a Mignight Dreary came out. So we're going to be talking about all of those. There's also a Lion's book. Charlotte Wren had a book that released this week, and we're going to talk to her at a future time too. So I'm so excited you're here. So let's dive in because we've been talking about Bob's Big Boy and Velociraptors and a whole bunch of, and Johnny Depp and it would be a shame for everybody else to miss out on that. So Katherine, your book released on Tuesday, and It's the first one in a while for you, right? And it is obviously a pirate book because you have Jack Sparrow on your shoulder and a fabulous hat.
My accoutrements, yeah.
There you go. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sea Rover's Curse? And it's part of the Pirates of Britannia.
It is. It's right? Part of the Pirates of Britannia. It's a story about a young woman who is trying to break the curse that has haunted her family. And there's buried treasure. She's trying to find the buried treasure. And then the hero is, this all takes place on Lundy Island, which is off the Bristol Channel. And really fabulous island. And the hero is in charge of security there, and so he's supposed to be keeping any pirates or brigands, from trying to take control of the island, because the Lundy Island was right there. Like I say, you have Bristol. Well, it's probably opposite here from what I'm thinking. Okay, so I would say Bristol's here, and then the island is here, and you have the channel in the middle, and so all the shipping was going from Bristol to the Americas, or from the Americas to Bristol, or north to Ireland and Wales and Scotland, or south to the continent. So it was a prime area for pirates to attack ships there. And Lundy Island, if they could get control of that island, they could control the channel, and they could come out on forays and attack people and come back. And so that was like a prime place for anyone to get, going back as far as the Vikings on into I want to say the Revolutionary War. So it's just a fabulous island. And so when I was researching it, trying to figure out, I first off started researching Bristol and the Bristol Channel, and then I found the island, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's pirate gold. And so then I started researching everything there was about the island, and it just fascinated me so much. And then I'm sure you guys know, when you find these little historical nuggets, and then it just spurs something else inside of you, where it just makes you feel like wow, this really cements and grounds my story and makes it so much better. I found this book, The Secret Report of Friar Otto. And Friar Otto is supposedly the friar who came and interviewed Sir William De Marisco while he and his 16 men were in prison waiting on their execution. So Sir William De Marisco is my heroine's ancestor. And he was the first owner of Lundy Island. And King Henry III planned, he wanted the island for himself. He couldn't get it away from the De Mariscos, who were very powerful. So he made a plan that he was going to come and take it from them. But it took him 4 years to figure out the punishment for Sir William for not handing over the island, because King Henry III wanted to hand it to the Knights Templar. And so William wouldn't back off. They arrested his wife, Matilda. All these happened. They took away all their titles and lands, and he held on to this island for 7 years. And 4 of those years, they were forced to pirate back and forth across the Bristol Channel, because the island really has no way to, there's no way to really sustain
Not
yourself
sustainable.
There. So anyway, so in the dead of night, these 12 knights climb up this cliff face. There's only 2 ways to get on the island. There's the landing beach, and there's a cliff face. These 12 knights climb up, and at the top is a doofus. I want to call him a doofus, but anyway, his name is Ivor. And Sir William and his men had saved them, because also one of the things about Lundy is a lot of shipwrecks happen there. Mm-hmm. And so they had saved him. He was clinging to a ship's mast, and they saved his life. And he stayed there and worked with them, but he betrayed them. And he was on watch. He let these 12 knights come up, and they attacked Sir William and his men while they were eating dinner. And so a ruckus happened. Sir William and his knights killed a lot of people, but they still got apprehended and taken across the channel to Bristol, and then on to Westminster. And during the 4 years that he was pirating, King Henry III drummed up this, he didn't want anyone to betray him again. So no more treason. He drummed up this horrible, horrible execution.
Oh no.
That he would be hung, drawn, and quartered. That was the very first time it was ever done.
That's a lot. That's a lot of dead.
He invented that? What an imagination he had.
So Friar Otto comes to they were in 3 different prisons, Fleet, I think it was Newgate, and the Tower. And so he came and he interviewed all 17 men, including Sir William De Marisco. So this author, Sam Smith, he wrote this book. He translated Friar Otto's actual report. And so when I found this, I was like, oh my gosh, in my research. So I read it and everything, and it has actual translated comments from Sir William and his men, and they were innocent of this treason that they were being accused of. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this gets even better, And so
now you have a whole wronged family.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. And then they all had to flee because Sir William, and his men were killed. So all of De Marisco's fled, and they moved to New Zealand, Australia, France, and the Americas. And my heroine's family moved to France, and they changed their name to Marsh, Damaris, Montmorency. There's a Montmorency near Paris. The Montmorencys were distant relatives of the De Mariscos. So they were such a powerful family, and they were destroyed and became paupers. So in the Sea Rover's Curse, Sir William De Marisco is rumored to have buried a treasure on Lundy Island. And so in the Sea Rover's Curse, Marin Damaris, his descendant, she's one of the last De Mariscos in France. She goes to try and get the treasure on Lundy Island. So long story longer. But anyway, I'm just fascinated with Friar Otto. Also, another interesting tidbit, Friar Otto is rumored to be Friar Tuck.
No. Robin Hood, Friar Tuck.
Yes. Because after this happened, and he was so disgusted by the church and all the backstabbing and the
hung, drawing, and quartering part would be a little bit hard to take too.
Yeah. he was so upset about all this that he left. He was Austrian, and he left, and he went to places unknown. And so they're saying that he was actually the real Friar Tuck. So that's the rumor. But so anyway, just all those tidbits are just so exciting, it just make you want to just keep.
Well, you have about 12 books there.
Yeah, definitely.
So there are 3 in the series, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they all? Do they all take place at about the same place, or do you have?
Well, no. The Pirates of Britannia, they're all different stories, and so this was just my story is just one story of this nature, but all the Pirates of Britannia, they talk about different pirates from the line of there's the English faction, there's the Irish faction, a Welsh faction, a French faction, a Spanish faction, and they're all enemies, and how that works together. She's actually from the French faction, and he's a descendant of the Irish faction. So it's fascinating. stuff. You can get really in depth in it and everything. So
Caroline's right there. Lots of stories there.
yeah, it's just real exciting. But how Sir William was executed, just horrible. They brought out his men one by one. He was forced to stand and watch his men being dragged behind horses. And about the fourth or fifth guy came out, and he was like, "Heck, I'm not gonna die like this." So he tried to jump on the back of the horse so he could get onto the horse and ride the horse, and he fell off and he got dragged. And so they all behaved very brave towards the end, but William was forced to watch all this. And then after he watched all that is when then they started working on him. So he was forced to watch all 16 of his best friends and mates die. So,
no, yuck.
Yeah.
Yuck.
I'm gonna stick with the love story part thing.
Yeah. Sorry, I like.
Which makes me itchy.
Like flashing, So, yes. So the love story. So this is a Little Mermaid meets Treasure Island story.
See, that works for me.
Yeah. And so Marin is in a shipwreck, and the hero Kit, he rescues her. Hardly anybody ever survived a shipwreck on Lundy Island. Very few people did. There was a wreck that happened in my book just a month before my book takes place, and only one person survived. And the rest, most every time, the crews died. And so the hero feels this need to save somebody, and so they were able to save 7 people. And so then he doctors her back to health, and
Like a good
and then
hero
he starts
does.
learning her history, and like the Little Mermaid, she can't talk at first, so she's had a damage because of being in the cold seawater and everything, so being sick. So it takes a little while for her to start talking again, and then there's lots of hijinks and betrayals and things like that. So
As long as there are no dragging horses involved, that's cool. So, Caroline, there are no pirates in your book, are there?
No pirates and no hang drawn and quartered either. Just a lot of deception and dishonesty.
So you have The Defiant Daughter, which is the second book in the Ashmead heirs.
That is the one. The business with the Ashmead heirs is that an earl dies, and he's had a contentious relationship with his son and heir. So from spite, and one night while drunk, he writes a will that strips the estate of everything that isn't entailed and gives it to all of his bastards, who he lists by name with their mothers, just to get back at his son. I'm not going to write all the books for all the heirs. The Defiant Daughter is actually the legitimate daughter, and his will says, to my defiant daughter, Madeline, I leave nothing. And he hadn't given her much by way of a marital settlement either. So when she's a dowager duchess, which you would think would mean she was well off, but the truth is she didn't have much by way of settlement. So she went home relieved to be free of a really terrible marriage and is living in her brother's dower house. And she would happily probably have stayed there in kind of mild contentment the rest of her life, except their half-brother, one of the bastards, shows up in book 1 bringing a friend with him. So this is book 2. And it starts with the friend driving her home one night by moonlight. She still probably would have stayed there, except she gets a letter from London telling her that her stepson needs to talk to her. Now, Philip's only a few years younger than she is. She was a second marriage, obviously. So she goes to London and she discovers that an American has been asking ornery questions, and Philip is very upset because he's the current Duke, and the American laughed at him when he told him he was the heir. He said, no, where's Gideon? Well, Gideon, they both thought, was the old Duke's bastard, and they also were told he was dead. But Maddie knows something that Philip doesn't know, so she goes back to Ashmead, goes into her brother's archives and pulls out something she stole from her dead husband, which is a letter indicating he was actually married to the first son's mom. So he had married in the colonies in South Carolina during the Revolution. And this older son was born. But when he turned up years later, he treated him like dirt and let everybody assume he was his bastard. But he wasn't. So actually, the Duke is
kind of the bastard. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's terrible. He's terrible. He's this is one of those books where the villain is dead. Two villains. They're both dead. But Maddie gets an attack of conscience. She never did anything about it because she figured Gideon was dead. And so let Philip inherit and we'll all be happy. But the truth is, the guy who was the Duke is the one who was illegitimate because his father was a bigamist. Mm-hmm. So she's got a problem. And she and the hero go back to Wales. The reason the hero tags along is because that's where he's from. And they think Gideon was sent to the mines because the old Duke owned coal mines. And that is where my hero, Bren, is from. And he left Wales because he hated coal mining. He hated, after a really horrific explosion, traumatized him. He left and never went back. But he goes with her because she threatened to go without him. So they trek off to Wales. The research I did not involve kings, hanged, drawn, and quartered, or pirates. It involved things like...
Thank goodness.
Mine includes that.
Yeah.
This whole day has taken a really Halloween-esque kind of turn.
Yes, it has. But I learned a lot about coal mining and what caused explosions and what kind of jobs were given to 5-year-olds. I mean, child labor in the mines. So I have them visiting like 3 of them. Bryn's brother is the gifted, benign coal mine owner. The ones that Philip owns turn out to be terrible. He had no idea. He's in London and these people are earning him money and he had no idea how bad his own properties were. And then they finally find the brother who, yeah, he was sent to the mines, but he was pulled out by the coal mine, by the owner who realized his potential. And in fact, he inherited the guy's mines. So he's an owner. He's a very wealthy coal mine owner.
Oh, so he made his own way.
He made his own way. He's a great character. I've had a couple of people yell at me that I have to add 2 books to this series because both of those guys.
So we can have Gideon's story too, right?
Yes, the one that's Duke in name only and the one that's Duke in everything but name. Gideon doesn't want anything to do with it, but he has a son, and they're all pretty sure that while the House of Lords won't overturn the title once it had been given, they'll look at it real closely in the next generation. And there's no way Philip's son will ever inherit. It's going to go to Gideon's son. So they have to deal with that. So that's 2 books right there, I think. I don't know. I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with them. Anyway, in the process of unwinding this, both Bren and Maddie have some pretty deep demons of their own. She's falling for him, but she's a little afraid of being touched. The previous husband really was pretty awful. So she needs to be coaxed along, and I think I handled that pretty well. And Bren has to deal with
good coaxing.
Yeah, lots of good coaxing and some very frank talk. He has to sit her down and explain to her how it's supposed to work. And as to Bren, he has to face up to his past. He'd run away. He'd refuse to communicate. He's sending money back. He's poor. He's a half-pay colonel who's working for the government, and every penny he makes, he sends back. So he can't afford a wife. Except he figures out that the woman he was sending it to has remarried. She's doing fine. His father actually bought her a house. She's the woman whose husband had blown up in the accident that traumatized him. They're all fine. And his brother and she had been putting his money in escrow for him because, if you turn up and get it, you'd know what was going on. So he has to come to terms with all of that. So had a pretty good ending. I had a really great comment from a reader this week. She said, my previous books captured her imagination. This series captured her heart.
That's lovely.
I about cried. So
yeah, that's lovely. Well, Vicky is lobbying. She said Gideon is a great character, and she's lobbying for a baby in Gideon's book.
Gideon already has 3 kids.
and one more. Poor William is very sad, that's very sad for poor Sir William, which is it absolutely was.
He gets justice.
Well, not only that, but every generation of traitor after now that they came up with that horrific method of execution. Good God, it went on for another few hundred years.
So let's roll right into the cheery Halloween anthology. with 20 ghost stories So Chastity and Emily, you're both part of that anthology, which released yesterday. It's 99 cents. If you don't have your copy, you have to go get it right now. I'll put the link in the comments, but it is guaranteed the best Halloween reading possible for under $1. What are you waiting for? So can you guys tell us a little bit about your ghost stories in it? And please let them not be gruesome. Yours is. You already warned us that yours was.
And it scared the living daylights out of me. I got 2 pages in. I was like, whoa. Because I had to finish it. So under the covers the whole time. So, yeah, that's seriously spooky.
I love paranormal. I'm sorry.
I like paranormal as long as it's historic paranormal.
Well, that's my stock and trade. Well, since Emily touched on it, I'll go ahead and my story in the anthology was called Into the Night, and I set it at the Ancient Ram Inn, which is, if you've ever watched Ghost Hunters on the Travel, or Ghost Adventures rather, on the Travel Channel, they did an episode there, and I've kind of been fascinated with the place ever since. So when this opportunity came up, I was like, I know exactly what I'm writing. There are, like, it's just chock full of ghosts. Like, it's literally the most haunted place I've ever heard of. There's a shepherd and his dog. There's a cavalier. There's a woman who was burned for witchcraft. There's a succubus. It's got everything. And I tried to put as much of it in there as I could. And But to me, what's always scarier are the things that you don't see. You feel them. You know they're there. You know they're watching you.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's this one particular moment where the hero, like the heroine, has fainted because it was just this exhausting, horrible journey. And this place is super creepy, and she's all by herself, and he walks in, and, he's just silhouetted against the darkness of the night. And she's like, what have I done to myself? Because they arranged to get married via personal ads in the newspaper. So she's obviously a little Twitter-pated. So anyway, she faints. He carries her upstairs, and he places her in this room in the bed. And he feels this sensation of knowing he's not alone in that room. And he peers into this corner, and this corner is really, really dark, like just pitch black. I can see you getting uncomfortable.
I'm like, yeah.
And there's nothing there. It's just darkness. But all of a sudden, the darkness just shifts, and now he can see light coming through the floorboards where there wasn't any before. Ooh. So he doesn't know what was there, but he just knows something was. And that's the kind of stuff that I just layered into that story. And there's a kindly vicar who provides all the assistance.
Thank goodness, because
that they need to get out of this terrible situation. They do survive their night at the Haunted Inn. And they get married, and they go off, and they have a very happy life together. I'm hoping that when we take this anthology down, I can go back and revisit this story and maybe lengthen it a little bit and make it get more into their life after the fact.
The happily ever after part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now Vicky,
if ever a place needed it, it's this one.
Yeah, we don't do sleepover at Chastity's house because she tells ghost stories.
No.
It was that bit.
You're right, though. It's what you don't see that's terrifying.
I think so too.
The scariest scene in Jaws is when you don't see the shark. You don't see the shark.
Right.
Full disclosure, I am actually a ghost hunter. My husband and I go on paranormal investigations for fun. That's date night at our house.
Are you into New Orleans?
No, I haven't. I've been to New Orleans. I've never done a ghost hunt or anything in New Orleans. We live in Kentucky, so we've done like Bobby Mackey's. We've gone to I've gone to Waverly Hills. My husband hasn't yet. I used to be part of a group that did this for people. Like if you had a haunted house, you could send us a message via our website and we'd go check it out for you.
So fun.
Oh, like the like actual Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
But the power of Patty compels you and stuff. And
I've lived in a couple of spooky places. I've had to burn some sage a time or two in my life. So, but yeah. So anyway, it takes a lot to scare me.
I'm a little afraid to ask, but what's your ghost story about?
Mine is quite tame compared to Chastity's. It's just one little ghost who's haunting. It's just a tiny ghost.
Jasper-esque, yeah.
Just a little ghost.
Just a little wafer thing ghost. And she's haunting the local palace, and it's actually in the village where I live, and I can actually see the palace out of this window.
Oh wow!
Just out there, and she haunts the palace. And the rumor is that her lover went to war, and she just waited at the palace for him to come back, and he never came back, and they don't know who he is. And that's kind of all people know about this ghost. She's rumored to haunt the tapestry gallery in this palace, and she kind of floats around the village. So I had to build this whole legend and story around this ghost. But there's been a couple of other sightings in the woods as well. So there's been a few headless corpses floating around, because Mary Queen of Scots used to
a couple.
Just the odd.
There's ghosts on the periphery. It's not just the one little ghost.
We've got a couple of mates as well. And there's been some kind of misty sightings in the local woods. So like mists have then sort of formed into the shape of humans in different woods. So I kind of combined them all together for the story of this ghost. And my main couple is a happily married couple from one of my existing series, and the wife, she's a bit of a feminist, so she kind of writes or she used to write inflammatory articles about the patriarchal society, so she kind of balks a little bit that her husband runs a business, and all the people her husband wants to do business with, they only want to speak to a man in the office. So she's kind of stuck in the village with the kids going sightseeing, and she doesn't want to do that. She feels quite discontent. But then this ghost, I think, sort of senses that and starts getting a bit malevolent towards the wife. So sort of spooky things happen. And the ghost's long lost lover coincidentally had a striking resemblance to the husband. So there's sort of a bit of it is you're taking my Rory away from me. It was actually Rory is the name of her lover, whereas Fraser is the name of the hero. So there's sort of a little bit of it's a bit of a love triangle, I think, whereas the ghost is
with the ghost.
Yeah, it's the other woman. And these weird sightings, and then there's sort of a few weird and wacky things happen where the ghost kind of freaks out the heroine a little bit. But then the ghost actually comes good. She does a few nice things for the hero and heroine and sort of brings them together. I don't really want to spoil it too much. So it's nowhere near as scary as Chastity's. I mean, I was scared when I was writing mine, but I
don't know.
Just reading Chastity's, I was like,
feels a little scary, you know.
Okay, I'll read the anthology and treat Chastity's with great caution.
I'll wave my shoulders up like this. Don't want my neck unprotected, you know.
Wait, I live in a boring neighborhood. I can see that.
Well, you either need a Velociraptor or a life-size Jack Sparrow.
Well,
in your office space. I'm thinking if you could
call.
carry Jack Sparrow with you.
I have a map of a 1804 map of Ohio back there that just doesn't even begin to compete.
All I have is like baby Groot. Multiple baby Groots floating around my office.
Well, he's terrifying in his own way. So
there are owls all over the back of my desk. I have owls all over the back of my desk.
That counts.
Maybe they'll have to do.
Yeah, that counts. So this was an exceptionally spooky week. I guess I probably should have figured that, but I was not prepared.
Well, you chose a book with curse in it and the Halloween anthology. What did you think was going to happen?
I didn't think we were going to do coal mine explosions too, and that was
there was that.
Maybe ill-conceived on my part. So.
Yeah.
Ladies, this was fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it, even though I am going to spend the rest of the day a little twitchy from I'm a baby. Like I really am. I can't do anything scary, and I can't watch scary movies with anybody because I dance around the couch. It irritates anybody that I watch with. It's like I gotta keep moving because you don't want the headless corpse to catch you. You know, you gotta keep on the move.
That would be
Well,
bad.
if it's headless, it can't see you. You're okay.
But how can
You
it
say that
happen
now,
to
Chastity, but
women?
I don't know that that's true. Ladies, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to pop the links in the comments so that you can find them if you don't have the books. This week's books are the Sea Rover's Curse, which is part of the Pirates of Britannia world, Defiant Daughter, which is the second book in the Ashmead's Heir series, and the Halloween anthology. And then we also have Charlotte Wren's Lion's Den book releases this week too. So I will make sure that all the links are where you can find them so that you have more than enough to keep you entertained all weekend long. So thanks so much for joining us.
Happy
We'll see you next
reading, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.